What up, fight fans? It's the Iman Report on a rare Wednesday night UFC fight card. First time we've had a UFC fight card on Wednesday night in a few years. Was a very good fight card. In the main event tonight, Anthony Smith gets upset by Glover Teixeira by a fourth round knockout. We'll get to that in a moment. This is the Iman Report, and this is where the new home for this will be your normal channel for the Iman Report. So please be kind, hit that subscribe button, and better yet, hit the bell so you can be notified when we are on air. Let's get started. And also coming soon will be Twitter and Discord. That's in the works. So tonight was a good fight night for a Wednesday night. Good fight card for a Wednesday. On a scale of 1 to 10, I give tonight's fight card a 7. And my WTF was, unfortunately, it's got to be Jason Herzog and the corner of Anthony Smith for letting this fight. Anthony Smith just took some unnecessary punishment in the rounds 3 and 4. And normally Jason Herzog's a good referee, but not tonight. I think he just let Anthony Smith get the shit beaten out of him for way too much longer than he should have. So unfortunately, not a good night for Jason Herzog, and the corner needed to throw in the towel after the third round. That was round 4 should have not gone on, and even the doctors. Smith just took some much unnecessary punishment. And by the 4th round, he was starting to look like he was having a concussion and is likely going to have a lengthy medical stay. But for Glover Teixeira, that's his 4th. I think that's his 4th win in a row. So that is really good for Glover. But he did wipe out a contender in Anthony Smith, and Smith bites the dust. Yeah, 4 in a row. Unfortunately, most of his competition, who he's beat's not the top ranked competition. But Smith is probably his best win in a while. His last loss was to Corey Anderson in 2018. But what could be next for Glover Teixeira? Do they look? Oh, wait a minute! I thought I guess they've never fought before. But you know what? You know who could be actually a interesting? I thought they fought each other. I thought. Let me look, but if not. But but unfortunately, doesn't get him too much closer to the contention, with Jan Blachowicz likely getting the next title shot against John Bones Jones, and then you've got Dominic Reyes. Dominic Reyes is a guy that's right there on the contention window too. Dominic Reyes gave John Jones a good fight. I think he rightfully has his stake to a rematch, so that could be in the works. Oh, they've never fought. So, a couple possibilities for Glover Teixeira. One could be Dominic Reyes if he does not get the next title shot. Maybe you put Teixeira versus Reyes. That may not be a bad possibility. Or I think one that even better fits the bill is possibly Thiago Santos versus Glover Teixeira. That could be a good fight night card right there. So yeah, but that's who I think's next for. That's who I think's next for Glover Teixeira is I would say either Dominic Reyes, but I think the better matchup would be Thiago Santos. But yes, Anthony Smith, he took the punishment tonight. He was stopped in the He just took so much. Oh, it's fifth round. Okay, yeah, third, fourth, and fifth round. He just took way too much punishment. But that likely ends any chance for him getting back into any type of title shot anytime soon. But for the time being, he certainly could be a serviceable gatekeeper after his long medical suspension. That's a But as for Anthony Smith, who should he fight next? Let me see. After he does have and I don't expect him to fight maybe until the fall or winter. But as for Anthony Smith, when he does return from medical suspension, maybe put Anthony Smith up against Corey Anderson. That would be a really good fight right there. Against that's who I'd say maybe Anthony Smith versus Corey Anderson sometime. But yeah, good job for Glover Teixeira. That knockout is definitely could be in the running for 50 for knockout of the night. And yeah, my WTF definitely goes to to Jason Herzog and Anthony Smith's corner. You just got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them. Then in the co-main event tonight, it was Ben Rothwell versus Ovin St. Preux. This was a really good fight. It was a split decision. This could have gone either way. I had this fight as a draw, so this fight could have gone either way. Ben Rothwell gets the split decision against Ovin St. Preux. As for Ben Rothwell, his next fight should he's always a serviceable gatekeeper at heavyweight. As for what is next for Ben Rothwell, winner of Augusto Sakai versus Blagori Ivanov. I think the winner of that fight should be what's next in Ben Rothwell's future. As for Ovin St. Preux, I would just put him up against a debutante at heavyweight. But Ovin St. Preux actually held his own at heavyweight. But unfortunately, Rothwell's weight was just size was just too much for Ovin St. Preux. But he should try give OSP another fight at heavyweight, and maybe against the low level debutante or something like that. But I think he's could have a future at heavyweight. And in a barn burner in the event before that, Drew Dober knocks out Alexander Hernandez in the second round, and Drew Dober likely cements himself 50 G's for that knockout and a ranking next to his name as of next week. And certainly now, Drew Dober has been in the UFC for a lot of years, and he's finally He's now finally a contender in the UFC. He's been in the UFC since 2013. He's been in the UFC a long time, and he finally he's finally gone from journeyman to contender. A great story about Drew Dober here. Good win for Dober. As for Dober, what should be next for him? There is a couple possibilities. He called out Paul Felder, and Paul Felder seems to look to oblige to that call out. So that's a real possibility there. Another possibility, if that doesn't occur, rebook the original fight between him and Cesar Fajea. That could be a barn burner. But Drew Dober, you are finally a contender in the lightweight division. as it's been a good week for Justin Gaethje's camp and teammate. Gaethje and Dober both getting big wins. So that has been a good for that camp. As for Alexander Hernandez, I say his next fight should be against Gregor Gillespie. That would be a really good matchup there. And, maybe Hernandez is nothing more than a gatekeeper at this point. But but Drew Dober, enjoy your 50 G's tonight. That is a really great win for Drew Dober. In the fight before that at bantamweight was Ricky Simone, who wins a split decision against Ray Borg. Ricky Simone snaps a 2-fight losing streak, and Ray Borg just, I don't think Ray Borg's great at 135. I think he needs to go back to 125. He's good at flyweight, but Borg is mediocre at bantamweight. I think this fight was more to showcase Ricky Simone than anything else. After coming off of 2 losses, this was a good win for Simone, who needed to get back in the win column. As for who's next for Ricky Simone, I think you put him up against the Brett Johns. That would be a really good fight between. Have they fought against each other? No, they haven't. Okay. So yeah, make it. We will go with Brett Johns versus Ricky Simone. I think that would be a really good fight. As for Ray Borg, I think there's some good matches for him down at. You should go back to 125. That's where he thrives better, and I think a good fight for him at 125 would be one Cody No Love Garbrandt, who's dropping to flyweight. I think that would be a really good fight at 125. And in heavyweight, before that, Andre Arlovsky beats Felipe Lins via unanimous decision. And believe it or not, yep. But now Arlovsky gets the win. What's next for Arlovsky? I think maybe you give Greg Hardy to Andre Arlovsky. That might be a fight to make there. Arlovsky's a serviceable gatekeeper, and I think this could be the next step up for Greg Hardy. I think you put these two in the octagon and see what happens there, and see what shakes out. Is Hardy a viable contender or not? And that's what Arlovsky's good at, is gatekeeping. And I think this could be a good time for Greg Hardy to fight. I think that would be a good fight to make between Greg Hardy and Andre Arlovsky. As for Felipe Lins, you just give him a newcomer. His first fight, so just a debutante. He certainly has a future in the UFC. Just came up a little short tonight. Before that, in the first fight of the night, on the main card, that is, Thiago Moises against Michael Johnson. Thiago Moises wins in the second round via decision. What's next for Thiago Moises? Okay, I think a good fight for Thiago Moises could be Don Madge. I think that could be, those two are fairly close to each other in the rankings, so I'm going to go Don Madge. As for Michael Johnson, he's a good fighter, but unfortunately, he's 2-6 in his last 8 fights. And I think you got to cut Michael Johnson at this point. He's had a good career in the UFC. I think he could thrive in Bellator or the PFL. But I think Michael Johnson's time is up in the UFC. He just can't hang anymore. So I think it's just time to cut your losses with Michael Johnson at 2-6. All right, on to the prelims. You had in the women's bantamweight prelims, Sarah Moras versus Sijara Eubanks. Eubanks beats Morris by unanimous decision. Morris falls to 1-4 in her last 5 fights. She could also be in jeopardy of being cut after tonight. So it wouldn't be a total shock if she ends up getting cut. But also, I would give Morris one more chance to get a W. But I certainly think she's in jeopardy of being cut at this point. Maybe you put her up against Nika Montano in a loser gets cut fight. I think that would be the next step for Sarah Morris. As for Sijara Eubanks, maybe a fight against Sarah Alpar could be next, or Carol Rosa. But for Eubanks, that's okay. She's 1-2 in her last fight, so yeah, she won't get a big step up, but she's back in the win column, so go there. And then in the lightweight division, Gabriel Benitez loses to Omar Antonio Morales Ferrer. As for Ferrer, who should be next? Okay, maybe put Omar Antonio Morales Ferrer next against Mark O. Madsen. Those two seem to be close enough in each other in rankings. As for Gabriel Benitez, let's see who's probably give him a fighter that's near the cut line at this point, as that's his second fight he's dropped in a row, so he could be getting a fighter who's getting in the jeopardy line here. I'll just stick him to any fighter that's got 2 losses in a row. So for Benitez, his next fight's likely going to be against another fighter who's in danger of being cut at this point. And in the fight before that, a good one between Brian Keller and Hunter Azur. Keller gets the win by knockout in the second round. Keller is starting to get back in the rankings. That's his second win in a row. Who's next for Brian Kelleher? maybe I'll just do a little lazy matchmaking between Simone and Kelleher if they haven't fought each other. No, they haven't. So I'm going to go ahead and put I'm going to do a little lazy matchmaking and have Brian Kelleher and Ricky Simone fight each other. That's the next fight to make for Brian Kelleher. As for Hunter Azur, he shouldn't fall too far down. He's definitely got a bright future. He showed some good stuff tonight. Just couldn't hang with Brian Kelleher in the second round. But I think for him, his next fight should be against Tony Gravely. I think I'll go Tony Gravely for Brian Kelleher next. For Hunter Azur, so that hopefully that can give him some confidence and get him back on track. And then in the first fight of the night, Chase Sherman beats Isaac Villanueva. Villanueva, give him a debutante next time. That was his first fight. As for Chase Sherman, Sherman's next fight should be against, let's see who's ranked near him. Rafael Pessoa, that could be a good fight for Sherman. Pessoa, put him against those two. But that concludes it. We'll be back on Saturday night for UFC on ESPN 9. I hope everybody's having a good week. Follow your governor's orders. Stay at home. I know it's difficult, but you got to do what you got to do to stop the spread of COVID-19. Better night for the UFC. Nobody tested positive, so that's a big thumbs up for that. Really good work. Dana White has done I normally criticize Dana White, but this is one of the things where they're getting better at it is testing fighters, making sure they test negative before getting in the octagon. And after the scare Saturday night, they got bounced back, and tonight, no issues. So that's a big step in the right direction there. And Florida now going to reopen for sports. And there's MLS might be coming back online here pretty soon at Disney World. You might have the NBA returning in a few weeks at Disney World. So hold your head up. Things are going to get better, but stay at home, stay safe, and have a good week. See you Saturday night. Stay awesome. God bless you guys. Good night.